storm chasers, number one, they want to save lives, and they're thrill seekers. It's so awesome to see them at work.
Oklahoma is a little bit different. I mean, we have, all of our 4 seasons. We can have from one extreme 1 month of raging wildfires, and then 1 month later, we're talking about we have all kinds of severe weather.
We get hot. We're a pretty hot state.
Just the power and the motion of the clouds, how it looks with the different layers of clouds, the colors, the contouring.
When you see the cloud structures, you see the cumulonimbus just exploding.
And knowing the power and the wind and the velocities going up into this.
We're a very windy state, one of the windiest places around.
All that's going on inside that. All of the super cooled water versus the updrafts and the downdrafts and the hail and all these things, just a blender.
It's never the same. It makes life interesting.
The dynamics of it and how it starts turning. And then your anticipation of, okay, is this going to drop a tornado? Is it not?
Oklahoma has the highest tornado frequency of anywhere on Earth.
It gets crazy real fast around here.
I have an extra adrenaline pump in my body. When you're on air, you have to keep that tempered.
It's not just about storm chasing, it's about forecasting and trying to make an educated guess about what's going to happen.
Oklahoma has dangerous, life-threatening weather that affects people's safety.
Some of these storms are forming so quickly that these guys are saving lives.
Please take cover if you're in the path of this thing.
We're able to control so many things around us, and weather's just one of them we don't. We can forecast them. We can tell you, hey, tomorrow's going to be a big severe weather day, but when it happens, we've got no control.
I mean, there's people that ask me all the time, well, why do you guys chase?
It just hit a house right here, guys. Direct hit. We got to go check. We got to check.
We're going to do whatever it takes to save lives. That's what it's all about.
Oh, my goodness.
Let's go check on it.
People now showing up, a couple of other storm chasers. They're calling out, trying to listen for people. Hopefully they had a storm shelter.
I'd always heard that there were 3 children buried at our Woodward Cemetery, and they were unclaimed children. Believe that, unclaimed.
If you come to Woodward, and if you're part of Woodward, you know the history is the 1947 tornado. And so you know that the history was built in large part with a tragedy here of devastating proportions.
My closest connection to the 47 tornado was my dad. The story that I remember him telling was his mom had him and his siblings get under their beds, and his sister, the tornado lifted her and the mattress out and rolled her several blocks down the street.
But on that day, Southwestern Bell was on strike, and so the information coming back to Woodward was slowed down because of the strike, and the telephone calls weren't getting passed on up the chain. So a lot of people did not know we had a tornado moving towards Woodward.
Killed 106 here in Woodward, the deadliest tornado in Oklahoma history.
Here's a list of dead. Burial of dead began Saturday with 2 infants. 47. A lot of stuff went on. Okay, a baby 6 or 7 months old is unidentified at the Chenoweth mortuary. 3 girls judged to be 5, 9, and 12 years of age are unidentified at the Armstrong Funeral Home. So that's the 3 that are buried out there. 5, 9, and 12 years old.
Well, I grew up in Oklahoma. I was born and raised in Oklahoma, and from my earliest childhood memories, I mean, I loved weather.
This is where I grew up. So I grew up watching, TV back in the day, because back in the day, that's the only way that you got any weather information at all.
I lived out in the country. There's no trees, no mountains, no hills to block the view, and we would have these storms come out of the Texas Panhandle, and I thought they were just amazing.
We played sports all the time. My dad coached our baseball teams. I can't remember what grade it was, but I got yelled at because I missed a ground ball because I was looking off in the distance at a storm.
I had a window unit air conditioner when I was a kid, and I turned it on, AC on high, and then I went to the kitchen anyway, brought in a bunch of pots and pans full of hot and cold water, and my mom's, you know, she goes, "What are you doing?" I go, "Just get ready." She goes, "What?" And I go, "Making a tornado. It's gonna happen."
Growing up, my parents bought me a NOAA weather radio, and I used to listen to that thing at night going to bed. I used to leave it on all night. In the middle of the night, if a storm came up, I would get up out of bed and go down and warn my parents. I'd wake them up in the middle of the night, say, "Mom, Dad, there's a severe thunderstorm warning." "Where is it for, Val?" "Oh, it's western Oklahoma." "Well, go back to sleep. We don't need to know about that."
Back in the 60s and 70s, I mean, there were some of the early pioneers. There would be guys in each county that would go out, fan out, and track these storms, and, you know, here's the tornado, and that message would be relayed back to, you know, the county, and then the TV stations would take all that information and spit that back out. So back in the day, there weren't chasers for TV stations. Chasing was done for research, and it was done on the local level that, you know, kind of by the counties. And then it changed.
I came to Oklahoma State University to Stillwater. I knew I loved weather, but I didn't really know, you know, didn't have a lot of knowledge about pursuing a career in weather, so I just took business courses. I wasn't interested in accounting and you know, business, finance, and all that kind of stuff. I was really interested in weather. At that point, I realized that I really wanted to pursue a career in meteorology.
I can remember a time as a teenager seeing my very first storm chaser. He pulled up into a parking lot where I was working. I just remember staring at that vehicle and looking at all the instruments on the vehicle and just thinking that was the neatest thing.
And so I began chasing storms in high school some. My parents would say, "Where are you going?" And I'd go, "Oh, I'm gonna go see John over here." She goes, "Well, you know there's gonna be, I think, maybe some severe weather today." And I'm like, "Oh, really? Huh, okay. Wow. Well, I'll keep an eye on that." Well, little did she know that I'm blasting west on I-40 going out into Canadian County or Kingfisher County to go see a storm.
One day, and this is in 1991, I called up Channel 9 out of the blue and just asked them if they needed anybody to chase storms for them. I remember the guy that answered the phone, and it was their weekend meteorologist, and it was Alan Mitchell was his name. He said, "Well, I tell you what, we don't hire anybody to chase storms, but come to the station and we will lend you a bag phone. You can call us to get radar data, radar information. We'll tell you where the storms are. Any video you get, you can bring back to the station and we'll show it on the air." The first time that I went out was April 12th of 1991, and we got video of kind of a relatively small tornado near the town of Marshall, Oklahoma. And so I brought the video back, and Gary England, you know, I finally got to meet Gary at that point, and he was really pleased, you know, with the video. And he's so pleased, he said, "I'll give you an autographed book, one of my autographed books." And so, okay.
I did an internship at Channel 5. It was Coco, probably the longest intern ever. My first, I call it a white knuckle ride. I was with my morning meteorologist, Jed Castles. And the dry line fired storms in western Oklahoma. Back then we didn't have cell phones, didn't have radar. I took a bag of quarters and you would find a payphone. And I remember just blasting through the rain, and we got blown. The wind was from left to right, probably 80, 90 miles an hour. And I came out of the rain and I looked to my left and I go, "Tornado." And it was a multiple vortex, and there was little bitty vortices. Just up and down, trees were going up, you know, leaves and limbs and stuff. There was a Kerr-McGee gas station on the west side of Stillwater. And this was a tiny little grocery store, right? And I run in, and there's some guy behind the counter, and he's like, "Hey." And I go, you have a safe spot? You got somewhere to go?" And he goes, "The coolers?" And I go, "Yeah, go to the coolers." I go, "Where's your payphone?" Take out my bag of quarters, and I call the station. I go, "Tornado, it's on the ground." And I look west, right over the top of the hill, and it's just multiple vortex. There's my Chevy Blazer parked out front. I'm not going out in it now. And I remember telling Jed, I said, we got to go to the ditch. Let's just go to the ditch. And he goes, I'm in, let's go. But that was one of those moments. It was my first really chasing moment where I thought, oh yeah, I can die from this.
The next time we went out was April 26th of 1991. And that was a big day. And we went out to around Canton area to start the day off and saw these big towers going up. I mean, and it just mushroomed into big, big storms after that. We caught the storm southwest of Enid and followed it through Enid. It was a mile-wide F4 that crossed I-35 and was on the ground a long ways. Channel 9 called and said, man, we got to get your video. I brought it back to the station. And Gary was so happy with me that he gave me a Channel 9 jacket this time. But he said, hey, we got to find a way to get you on at the station. There was an opening for a floor camera operator. And I didn't know a thing about operating a camera, but I learned. So I was the first storm chaser, strictly storm chaser that Gary hired, that Channel 9 hired.
So in December 1992, this is the ad that was in the Woodward newspaper, and I was upstairs at the Woodward Fire Department where I was on shift, and I read this ad. Weather observer part-time requires knowledge of weather, structure, development. I knew none of that. I always jokingly say I got out my big Chief tablet, my number 2 pencil, and wrote out a resume and mailed it in. And about March or April of '93, I got a call from the station saying, are you still interested? So I started with a bag phone, brand new VHS camera, cost me $1,200 in Woodward at a local appliance store, and I went storm chasing.
The first memory I got, okay, of Marty, there was a big storm coming across the Texas Panhandle.
And I can remember Gary calling me here at the house, and this was like the first chase I was ever on. He called me and said, hey, do you want to go see a tornado? Oh, yeah.
But it was a massive storm, and so I called Gary and we said, Gary, can we go after it? This is a huge storm. It's probably going to produce a tornado. And Gary said, no, it's not. Don't worry about it.
He said, I guarantee you're going to see a tornado.
But he sent Marty after it, and that was Marty's first chase.
Me and another guy, another buddy, drove out there and saw 4 tornadoes.
Marty went over there and saw a big tornado, and we had to sit there at the border just watching it from a distance.
And I'm thinking, this is easy. The boss calls you and says, drive out to a certain point and you're going to see tornadoes. Little did I know I was on my first learning experience right then. Not all tornadoes come from wall clouds, and also that when the boss calls you and said, hey, do you want to go out and chase, that doesn't mean you're going to see a tornado every time you go out.
I went to Oklahoma State University and majored in electrical engineering technology. I checked out every meteorology book that I could find and just started reading, but there was no information about how to chase, no information about how you actually go into the field and track a storm. So I contacted Channel 9, and I actually sent an email to Channel 9, Gary England, and his secretary, Susan Gear, received that email. And probably a month later, I think she actually sent it to Val.
Susan Gear called me up and said, hey, there's this cute girl that's been bugging us. You want to meet her? No, I'm just kidding.
He had a weather consulting business, Castor Weather Incorporated, and he wanted me to do a web page for him.
We just got to talking about what she wanted to do, and I needed a website. Really, to tell you the truth, I didn't need anything. I didn't need any projects done, but I invented a project just to meet her. But from that point on, we kind of formed a friendship, and then we started chasing together.
Val and I were invited to a Channel 9 party, and so we didn't even have storm chasing clothes. We had dress clothes on, and a storm popped up west of the Oklahoma City Metro, and we immediately went into chase mode.
That was her first tornado.
Officially with you.
With me, actually in the truck, chasing together.
Okay, it's June 13th, and it's 3:41 in the afternoon.
You know, I think my perspective as a storm chaser would be to be a mile or two from the tornado. But I learned that day that Val likes to get really close.
It's rapidly forming a funnel, and it's angling off to the southwest. Here's the updraft. This whole thing is rotating.
We watched the wall cloud, and it was rotating as it was coming over the lake. And
Big.
all of a sudden, we noticed like a spray on the lake forming.
We got a tornado on Lake Hefner right now as we speak.
At that point, you hear me screaming, tornado on Lake Hefner, and Gary's like, You mean to tell me, Val, there's a tornado on Lake Hefner? Yes, a tornado on Lake Hefner.
And I can remember trying to find a freighty hole inside the truck.
And I think some sailboats went flying.
It's probably less than a quarter of a mile to our south. Right there, hold it right there. Right now, Gary's crossing Lake Hefner Parkway about...
And we measured 105 mile-per-hour winds. So strong that it bent my mirror on the outside of my Chevy truck.
Gary! Hang on, hang on, hang on! Gary, Gary! Hang on, hang on. We got a tornado on the ground.
I got to see firsthand, you know, capturing damage, really seeing from behind the scenes what goes on. You know, when you see it on television, you just see an amazing shot of a tornado, but I didn't realize all of the challenges that came along the way as far as debris and traffic and just trying to figure out where the tornado went and avoiding tornado damage. And there were so many parts to that that I learned on that first chase that really changed my perspective.
That was our first chase together, and that was an intense chase. I mean, yeah, that was probably one of the more intense chases.
I went to Los Angeles in 1983, and I came back to Oklahoma in 96. In that time gap, storm chasing really exploded. I couldn't really understand why they were telling me, are you worried about storm chasing? I just told them, I said, well, people in Los Angeles shoot at you. You know, I said, the thunderstorms are not going to shoot at you. This is going to be a cakewalk. I thought it was kind of one of those deals where it's like you're chasing, you want to get the first tornado over the other stations. It's like a game. May 3rd, 1999 changed all that for me.
I remember waking up and getting around for work on Monday, May 3rd. When I stepped outside to come to work, it was warm, it was humid. The day had a bad feel to it.
Conditions are pretty favorable for some explosive thunderstorm development. In fact, some that's going on right now. There's going to be a threat of severe thunderstorms, large hail, some strong winds, and the possibility of some tornadoes with these storms this evening and tonight.
On the air that day, I said, you know, we're going to have severe weather today. We're going to have damaging wind, large hail, and we're going to have probably a couple of tornadoes.
We had received information that the weather was going to get bad later on in the afternoon, and we knew that. We thought it was going to be a major rainstorm.
That I think the bad day would be in my city? Of course not.
As the morning went on, they raised it to a moderate risk. And so then when we started thinking, okay, this could be a little bit crazier of a day.
You know, you still always hope that the storms will dissipate or they'll split or they'll, you know, decrease in intensity or never reach the intensity. That wasn't to be on May 3rd.
The noon show was over. At 1 o'clock, I had my chase gear. I got in the truck, and the storm went up hard and fast over Lawton.
The first storm that we saw go up was southwest of Lawton, down near the Red River.
First storm of the day. And that would grow and become the Moore tornado.
And we started going north and following it.
We've been watching the storm to the west. No tornado touching down yet, but do have another funnel cloud in the air. Let's go live.
The biggest one came about halfway to the ground. Right now, this funnel is about 3 miles south-southeast of Colony. Gary, we got a tornado on the ground.
We see the debris cloud right there on the ground. Right, tornado touched down briefly a little while ago. This storm is reorganizing once again. Could produce another tornado.
It looks like to me, Gary, this thing is rapidly getting organized. The rotation has gotten much stronger.
Tornado on the ground. There it is.
Hey, Gary, the rotation, this thing's going to be a big one, I think.
A bunch of debris going through the air now. A bunch of debris.
Tearing things up. It's throwing lots of debris. It's very tense at the surface.
And I get out to do a stand-up. I had done several that day with the tornado behind me. Hey, look at the tornado. Here's what it's doing right now. My stand-up is going to be the tornado has been on the ground multiple times now for the last hour. Now it's lifted. But I go, right now, it's trying to reform. And I no more said that. And it just goes. And it just sets back down. Not only as the most violent of the day, but the largest of the day.
We got a funnel on the ground right now, right inside. Tornado on the ground. Debris cloud, debris cloud. There it is. Multiple vortex tornado on the ground.
I assure you, this thing is a monster.
You know, if you haven't gone to cellar basement, you really need to go now. This is a huge circulation.
I can see it now better. It is definitely on the ground. Yeah, we got visual of it. It's only about a half a mile down the road from us. It is definitely a wedge.
As we were going east and north on dirt roads, we were watching our map and just making sure that we were staying on track. And I remember thinking, this is really bad. And I looked at Val and I said, Val, look, there's neighborhoods.
I really had the worst feeling I'd ever had in my career. The Metro's in trouble.
Oh my
Look at the stuff in the air. Oh, look at the stuff.
Yeah.
Debris.
Biggest description I always gave to it was it looked like the wake of a boat. A huge boat cutting through and you see the wake coming off of it. That's that debris coming off the front of that tornado.
I mean, it's starting to come into the outskirts of the metro area.
It's a wedge-shaped tornado. It is moving into the metro area, densely populated areas. It is becoming stronger and stronger and stronger. It's going to move into more parts of South Oklahoma City unless it turns to the right. Our only hope is that somehow this thing will weaken. This is a deadly tornado.
And I mean, we had been on the air with this for over an hour, so, you know, we were hoping and praying that people would take notice.
I could hear everybody talking in my headset. I mean, it was getting kind of chaotic because everything was just like happening. I think at one point over the radio said that everybody needs to calm down.
In the back of my mind, I'm thinking people are going to start dying in this. You know, it's kind of a sinking feeling.
You know, thinking that we're about ready to experience something for the first time that Oklahoma City has never, ever seen when it comes to violent weather.
We were not prepared. We thought it was going to be a major rainstorm, you know, hail, high winds, just like usual. We didn't expect a tornado. We sure didn't expect a tornado that size come through.
We're the #1 tornado-prone metropolitan area in the world, but we had never experienced an EF5 tornado.
When it was finally over, I remember rolling, making a turn. It was getting dark, and my cameraman, he just said, "Look down." And I looked down, and it was gone. It was absolutely gone.
You know, I don't think it really set in how devastating it was until the very next day. We went back out there to the area that got hit and went through some of the damage areas and seeing that kind of devastation.
May 3rd of '99 really just opened a wound up in the state. Changed how we cover weather, but changed this state forever. The May 3rd of 1999.
So on April 14th, 2012, we'd had several storms that day. And in fact, the sirens had already sounded in Woodward during that day for a tornado warning.
The buildup from the news and weather stations was that it was a high-risk day. I think I kind of structured my day understanding that there was that risk.
As we get to Woodward, we pull in at the quick stop to get a coffee. There's a squall line moving in from Texas. We're going to stay with this squall line and go probably to Enid with it and just say we're watching things, you know, and give her a quick report.
Of course, the big activity moved into Kansas, but we look right out here along the dry line of thunderstorms forming.
We're thinking the night's winding down. We just got this one thing left. But when we get into town, things were changing.
That night, lightning took out the main control of our storm sirens. We lost siren control over the entire town.
There was this young girl came out of the quick stop all dressed up in a pretty dress, and I said, "Ken, why is that girl almost midnight? Why is she all dressed up?" And he goes, "Oh, it's the after prom party."
We were concerned about what the weather was going to do during prom. I mean, that's a lot of kids that are out and about, and you've got them all in one place at the prom and then the big after prom party.
We get into Woodward, we got a phone call from the station, and they said, "Get southwest of Woodward as fast as you can go." So we have a tornado warning, and it looks like it's headed to Woodward.
My daughter was home for the weekend from college. She had just pulled into the driveway when we called her, and we said, "Hey, there's a gust front coming in. just might go ahead and hang out in the basement tonight just in case.
So I went out southwest of town, right out by the Woodward Votech, and sat on a hill and started watching. And there was a cell phone tower, a radio tower down there with red lights flashing on and off, and then nothing.
The lights on that tower have went off. I'm sure that I saw a power line flash southwest of Woodward. Woodward police, you need to be sounding your tornado sirens now. Everybody in Woodward needs to be taking shelter.
And within a few seconds, there's a lightning flash, and there was the tornado on the ground.
Southwest of Woodward, everybody in Woodward needs to take tornado precautions. Tornado is almost on the ground.
I've known Marty for a number of years. Listeners can hear storm spotters as their voices inflect. When I heard Marty saying it's coming at Woodward and you need to take precautions, well, that's when I moved my wife and my grandson, who was asleep. I mean, this is nearly midnight at this point.
I remember the power went out, and the other assistant principal and I walked out of the building and ran out there and looked to the west. He's pointing and saying, you know, the next lightning strike, look over there.
It is huge. It's a very large tornado. Yep, power line flashes right there. 2 more power line flashes. Yep, Southwest of Woodward, serious. This is very serious for the people in Woodward right now. Also, there's an after-prom party up at the Woodward Fairgrounds. Everybody out there needs to take shelter right now. Oh man, it's getting bigger, Gary.
I saw it cross the road in front of me about a mile away, power line flashes, and then it came across 48th Street, more lightning flashes, and then you saw flashes, and I knew it was in a housing area.
Power line flash straight ahead of us. A lot of power line flashes, oh my goodness.
All of a sudden there was a big lightning, and you could just see that classic wedge tornado. And, you know, off the cuff, I said, kind of lined up with my house.
Massive tornado. Just heard a cop say, massive tornado. I agree.
What is it tracking?
It's headed to the...
It's tracking northeast. It just took out lots of stuff. It's got too much damage. I can't tell.
North side of Woodward. It's going to be headed to the direction of 22nd and Madison. Headed east, northeast. Power lines down. This is going to be... Okay, power lines down south of... Oh no, oh no. Oh no. Okay, I gotta keep calm here. I've got an apartment complex that's been hit. I'm looking at it right now. I've got a power line across the road ahead of me. Oh no.
Oh no.
Marty's in Woodward?
Okay, we've got debris all over the ground. Power lines down. Theater's being hit.
Found out later it actually had hit some businesses. But I didn't know that at the time, so I'm looking for victims in the road, thinking that they've been blown out of their homes.
And so I really didn't know what was going on, and our daughter that lived in Weatherford at the time gave me a call. So she told me that Woodward was hit by a tornado and that her dad, Marty, had said that everybody needs to respond to the hospital.
With Marty that evening, he did a transition from storm spotter to emergency responder. And he did it naturally because that's his background.
There's a gentleman walking down the road, and he has his hands over his face like this, and there's blood running down his face and his arms.
You okay? No. Nope. I've got a man here with a serious head injury. We've got other people in the car. Fire department, if you can hear me.
And a gentleman came down and said, I'll get him to the hospital. But at the same time I'm holding him up and visiting with him, I looked back at the white object. That was like a Suburban or something they were in. It was wadded up, and I could see a head bobbing up and down inside of it, and that was his mother.
Stay with your vehicle. Stay with your vehicle. I'm going to get you some help. Okay, anybody in the fire department at Woodward, Fort Supply, Fargo, Gage, we're going to need assistance. I have walking wounded right now in Woodward. Okay, there's a guy here who's going to get these 2 people and get them to the hospital. Woodward Hospital, you need to notify. I know you have a plan for a disaster. You need to implement your disaster plan now.
I was a nurse at Woodward Hospital during the 2012 tornado, and I was here at home when it all went down.
We couldn't even get up our street. Trees, power lines. I mean, you're running, but it's a couple of blocks, but that sense of relief when there she is. We've got her and our dog kind of in our arms, and and start checking on neighbors and making sure they were okay.
At one spot, there were 5 homes in a row that had all been either wiped out or nearly completely taken apart.
A lot of people just walking around in bewilderment of what happened. You know, everybody's in bed. Hopefully they got up in time to take shelter.
You don't know how he's doing, you know, because he had to go through it all. But I had to put on my professional hat at the time and, you know, take care of the people that were coming in, because that's what was important at that time.
I can remember going the night, probably within 3 or 4 hours after the tornado, and I was at incident command, and a firefighter looked at me and said, I'm probably going to regret this, or I'm probably going to hate myself for doing this, but he came up and gave me a hug and he said, thank you. He said, my family is just a half mile. No, it was closer than that, probably a quarter mile from where that tornado went through, but they heard you and knew to get in and take shelter. Then you go through the debris path the next day, and I can remember one gentleman coming up and he had bandages all over him, and he came up crying and wanting to give me a hug. That's what it was.
2013 was my last year to chase, and what a crazy year. If you look back at those 3 days, May 19th, 20th, and the 31st, within 12 days, we had 3 of the most violent days in Oklahoma history when it comes to severe weather.
It was pretty obvious early on that the day was unfolding pretty much like it did on May 3rd of 1999.
The first reaction I had was, this is not happening again. And unfortunately it was.
It was a different setup, but the tornado moving into southwest Oklahoma City seemed so similar.
This thing is growing. It is a stovepipe all the way to the ground.
And I get to Newcastle, the tornado comes down, it sits down, I come up the turnpike, and I start thinking, are you kidding me?
We were watching the radar. We were in constant contact with the Weather Service. Again, we had televisions for all of our local stations. They're tracking it.
I remember specifically saying, okay, Amy, as we were chasing, what are the lessons we learned from May the 3rd that we can change on this one?
We needed to stay way out ahead of it, play it for the long run, and get ourselves in a position where traffic and damage would not be a factor for us.
And we were out in the backyard watching the storm come in. We knew it was coming in because we heard the storm chasers tell us that it was coming in.
Right now, we're just a few miles north of Newcastle, still looking off to the southwest, and look at the wall cloud developing.
City
now.
manager and I watched the storms, and as the storms got closer and closer to us, I watched his shoulders start to slump.
We walked out there, and I got a call from my daughter. She says, you know, you need to get inside.
This tornado set down as an elephant trunk, violent, and then grew to a half mile wide as it's crossing I-44. And I just remember I came down 149th, turned my truck around. There's nobody around me.
This is a killer tornado. The motion is amazing.
Now, one thing that I did notice that was different is it was moving slower. It was not moving as fast, and that's bad, because the longer it stays in one spot, the more damage it's going to do.
So we made the decision to set ourselves up further east, so we wouldn't be right next to the tornado initially, but we'd be able to carry it further.
And it was kind of anchored. It was just moving along, but it was just getting bigger and bigger and more violent, and it was getting louder. And my engineer in the back, I said, hey, we got about 20 seconds. Jump out and put your feet on the ground. And he goes, are you crazy? I said, I'm just telling you, it's just get out, feel the power. He jumps out, puts his feet down, and goes, oh my gosh. And I go, can you feel that? And it's just the ground shaking.
When we start going north on Santa Fe, and there is a section of a wooden fence that comes apart and flies in front of us, and Amy's like, Val, turn around, turn around. Remember that area?
Yes.
That's about when we got the text from Pastor Hardy at Bible Baptist Church. And he said, Gary England has other storm chasers, but your kids only have one, Mommy and Daddy. And then after that, he sent another text that said, listen to your pastor.
I am going, I'm going.
Oh, my word. And we just kind of took a moment.
If you live in a residential area, you're out ahead of this thing. You've got to go below ground. This is a killer tornado. We have debris being thrown out everywhere.
We're at Penn Avenue and 149th, and it's coming right at us. And I remember just, and I'm like, God, I've been here before. This is so weird.
And this is another deadly tornado coming through more. It's amazing that it's happening again, Gary.
And I get out and I do a stand-up. This is the Moore tornado, leaving Moore. It's crossing sooner. It moves just to my south, and then it literally within another 2 minutes just ropes out, gone. That's it. It's over. I mean, it was over. It ended as fast as it began.
Jim Gardner, does that look like a school to you?
Yes, it is. It is, Kelly.
Oh.
It's people are digging through the debris. Sorry, Kelly. It just gets a little hard to talk here.
I call my wife, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, I know." And I was standing there, and I just lost it. I'm just like, ugh. And she's like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "No, I'm not. We just did it again."
May 31st is late in the year to get in strong jet streams like that. High Cape, we knew something big and bad was going to happen.
We expect thunderstorms to start developing just to the west of Oklahoma City during the next 1 to 2 hours. Once they start, it will be explosive development.
That was my last chase. I didn't know that was going to be my last chase.
First storm that goes up looks like it's going to do something. It goes north, and we take off and follow it, and we ended up south of Kingfisher. This monster starts forming southwest of El Reno.
The whole sky is sitting on the ground, and it is just churning.
I mean, when I saw it, it pretty much took my breath away, because in all the years I've been chasing, that's the very biggest tornado I've ever seen.
What made that storm so unique, so you have one EF5 on the ground, and then surrounding it, you've got anywhere from 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 tornadoes on a merry-go-round rotating around, and not to mention, at least one of those tornadoes was rotating anticyclonically.
Many times, all you could see were individual vortices here and there, and they would just pop up in sporadic locations.
But I had that little voice, something said, "Don't go this way. Go back the other way." I knew there were a lot of trackers out that day. I knew there were hundreds, but I had no idea that trackers and Oklahomans were being killed, literally, a half mile north of me.
But obviously, when I think of that, the storm chasers that got hit, my first thought is what about the wife? What about the son? What about the daughters? What about the family, the mother, the father of the people that get hit?
I always think, if I had gone east and it made the curve, would I have been caught in a bad spot north and east of it? I don't know. What I've been able to do is bring all those years, I think, of experience of chasing tornadoes and bring that in the studio.
We have the National Guard, and we have the police, and we've got ODOT, and we have all of the infrastructure. We call it a football there at the Emergency Management Center. Every single different state agency has a spot there, so we can keep a kind of central command. They're cooked up to the National Weather Service, and then we've got the local media. We don't have any storm chasers, so we're relying on the local media markets to do that.
Each part of that has a tremendous role in warning the public and educating the public.
The importance of storm chasers is always up for question, because we think we have so much technology that can give us answers, but having that ground truth is something that radar just cannot give us yet. That technology is not there to know exactly if a tornado is on the ground.
There could be rotation at 10,000 feet, but no rotation at the surface. And so that's why they're always going to need storm trackers, or someone that can, look at the base of that storm and say, "Yes, David, we have a rotating wall cloud. It looks like it's going to produce a tornado."
The storm chasers have been invaluable to the city of Moore, and the reason is because they go out and they can actually see whether the tornado's coming up or down, and they can see if they're merging together. And the radar people, time they get that information, it may be too late.
When we first started chasing, we started out with a handheld scanner and a truck. And then from there we moved on to a handful of quarters and a payphone, and from there we moved on to a bag phone and paper maps. And now we have a computer, all right, that pinpoints our location, where we're at. We got GPS mapping on the computer that shows everywhere we go. It shows every dirt road. We have radars that can pinpoint and show where we are at in relation to the storm. And that's especially helpful at night, so there's no more guessing. And then we got Facebook Live now and other platforms like that we can stream on.
We have the technology, we have the resources to tell anybody and everybody who wants to watch and listen and learn where this threatening severe weather is. If I think it's going to produce a tornado, and if there's not a tornado warning on it, but I think it's going to produce a tornado, I'm going to tell you, just because I've seen it.
People give us a hard time sometimes that we, maybe blowing up their soap opera or whatever, but hey, I'll tell you what, after May 3rd, 1999, I don't care. I'm out the door, and we're going to do whatever it takes to save lives. That's what it's all about.
I've been fortunate to be born and raised and to be able to live and stay in the same market that I grew up watching TV in the #1 weather market in the world. I'm extremely blessed to be where I am and to have the resources that I have, to be able to go and do what I love to do, and that's talk about weather. I'm surrounded by great people.
From 1979 till now, I've never been off 24-hour call. I was thinking that the other day. It'll be nice when I'm not on call. Gray hairs are starting to kick in a little bit more. Grandbaby's coming along. So right now I'm learning, to probably slow down a little bit.
Every morning before we go out to chase, we always pray before we leave the driveway. Lord, we just thank you for today. We thank you for the chance to get to go out. And Lord, we just want to pray for safety today for not just us, but also for our kids, and safety for the other storm trackers, and safety for all the people in Oklahoma and the Texas Panhandle that are going to be affected by storms today. Lord, we just also want to pray that you would help us to do our job and to do it well and to be able to warn people. And Lord, most of all, we just want to pray that we honor you in everything we do and say today.
We live in a crazy place. I mean, unfortunately, we live in a place that we've had many severe weather tragedies, and I think that's part of the reason that the weather is so important in Oklahoma, why it's so valuable to viewers.
I'm glad I did what I did and what we're still doing, Debbie and I. So it's been very fulfilling, very fulfilling.